Okay.
No, I don't think I need to cut that out at all because you helped me understand.
Mhm.
That's language that I heard in the school system from teachers.
Yes.
The Making Business Effortless podcast mission is to support successful entrepreneurs by sharing the stories of high performing service based business owners while sharing tips and helpful resources so you can buy back time and make more wealth in your business and in your life.
I am excited about this conversation because this is an interesting topic to me. One, I am not neurodivergent, so I don't understand a lot about it. However, I've had clients who are. Burnout, we've all experienced burnout, but I think that the combination of the two, understanding it and how to navigate it, is a really good thing to understand right now because I see a lot of neurodivergence putting themselves out there on social media doing whatever it is they want to do, they're whether it's a video of them playing music or whatever. um so my guest today is Paula. And Paula, can you tell me a little bit about what it is you do and the topic of neurodivergency and burnout?
Sure. So thank you for inviting me here. My name is Paula, and I help neurodivergent women to prevent or overcome burnout by combining mindfulness and science backed methods so they can have more energy and live their life to the full.
Okay, so what are the science-backed methods? I mean, are they something that they do physically or
So there are many methods, of course. It can be something like scientific evaluations that can help you pinpoint exactly where you are or where your issues are. It can be certain tools that are used in psychotherapy or coaching. I have a background in psychology myself, so I do bring the wealth of knowledge from the science background. And of course, there are now tools that have a backing of science, but they are coming from a more alternative space like breath work, meditation,
Mhm.
yoga nidra, things like that, that we already have backing by science that they actually have certain effects on our health, on our wellness, on our productivity. So we can use them in the best way possible to harness them in a way that they actually work for us rather than just being something that we might try sometimes, might enjoy or might not. We can actually use them in a way that actually works and brings results.
Okay, so I remember, for example, I had a client who was ADHD and possibly a little bit on the spectrum. And he said he was neurodivergent. So he would tell me during the Zoom sessions. I don't do them anymore because of this. I find that the way that I coach now may be a little bit more supportive for people that are like this. During sessions, he would have to get up and start doing jumping jacks, and he was like, I'm listening. I need to move." you know. Yeah, the squeezing stuff. Yeah, she has a little stress ball in her hands. Yeah, so those I remember working with some autistic children that they would do things with their hands a lot to help them cope in a situation. These were severely autistic children to help them cope with situations that were just really, like if you sat in the teacher's seat and you weren't the teacher, it kind of anything like that would start to trigger them into something. So I would notice their coping mechanisms. So you talk about breath work, yoga. Are those better or are what I'm talking about how they cope versus I've never seen one use breath work. So that's the one thing. Stop and just go.
Okay, so there is a few things that I'd like to address here. So I don't know,
Okay.
maybe you'd like
Okay.
to
Well, I want to
to
understand. I do. I want to understand.
sure. So maybe you will want to pause and reframe that and cut it out completely. But
Okay.
first thing is that in the neurodivergent community, it is now more and more discussed that functioning labels are harmful. So saying things like a little bit autistic or a little bit on the spectrum or severely autistic is something that we do not like to perpetuate. Like in the
Okay.
medical community, it still exists,
Mm-hmm.
because there's a lot of reasons, but generally, like in a neurodivergent adult community, we do not like that anymore, because there is actually, you cannot be a little bit autistic or very much autistic. It's
Okay.
a bit like being pregnant. You're either pregnant or not. You're either
Mm-hmm.
autistic or you're not. You have ADHD or you don't.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
so the only thing that might be different in different people is having different environments, is having different maybe comorbidities and other things that, or different intellectual capacities. There's a lot of other things that come together
Okay.
that might make a person look like they have maybe more symptoms, or
Mm-hmm.
look like they have less symptoms, but actually they all have the same, like they all are autistic or not autistic. It's just that
Okay.
another thing is actually quite harmful, is that a lot of us are conditioned from being from a very young age, are being conditioned to look more normal, so we mask,
Okay.
and we look more normal or less autistic, but actually we are still the same autistic, and masking is actually really harmful for us. It's super harmful for us, for our mental health, for our overall well-being. And again, putting that functioning label that, oh, someone is looking
Mm-hmm.
less autistic, so maybe they need less help. Actually, they might even need more help, because if they're masking so much that they're looking less, they might be
Okay.
suffering more.
No,
Okay.
I don't think I need to cut that out at all, because you helped me understand.
Mhm.
That's language that I heard in the school system from teachers.
Yes, it is language that is used
So
a lot.
it explains.
Absolutely.
I mean, I had no idea. I just thought that that's the way it's from a teacher,
Yeah.
who supposedly is supposed to be knowledgeable about these things, you know, and that explains so much, and that can tie into burnout. And the way I made the connection with you when you said you're either autistic or you're not, and we mask things. I have an autoimmune disease where, the pain thing, where it's either 1, 2, 3, 4 from
Mhm.
severe, not no pain to what severity. Well, we're constantly in pain. So we make a joke about that, but we also tend to put on our makeup and look really good so we don't have to explain how we feel.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
I kind of made that connection about the masking.
Yes, and in some ways it can be somewhat useful for some people. For
Hmm.
example, in a school setting, it might be useful for people to say, "Oh, this is high functioning," or "This is low functioning," because that's kind of shows how much support they need. Like, the people have different support needs, but actually, it would be just more useful for everyone and helpful for everyone to speak about people's support needs, and rather than saying high or low, just say that they need such and such support and they need such and such.
Well, I mean, admittedly, I was like, I don't know how to talk about this without
Mhm.
being offensive, because I know that, well, I mean, people who talk to me about my autoimmune disease offend me sometimes without meaning to, just because they
Yeah, so
don't know how to talk about it.
absolutely. So I completely understand. Like, I do not take any offense. And I know a lot of people think that way and speak that way because that's how teachers speak. That's how
Right,
mentors
right. Or they've
speak.
heard that somewhere. Yeah.
And I'm really glad that we spoke about it. So hopefully
Yeah.
more people will learn it and understand from it. And maybe you want to go back to the question you were actually originally asking me.
Meanwhile, back at the question. No, I think actually, no, I think your explanation actually led to the
Mm.
burnout aspect. Do you think that, you talked about the masking and things like that? Those are all, those are also things that other people can go through as well. It's like you're fake it till you make it kind of thing. But for a neurodivergent and burnout, what does that look like for them? What are some of the techniques that you would go to in one of those moments where you really have to go from, let's say, you know, um, an appointment or some kind of event, a social event, and then switch to another, and one really made you upset, or burnout took place, some of the symptoms of burnout were taking place. How do you regulate your system on the go when you're a neurodivergent? Does that make sense?
Yes. Well, so first thing, preparation is the best.
Mm-hmm.
So I always advise my clients, and this is what I do myself. I prepare in advance and I plan my week and my day in a way that I do not have to go from one event to another event,
Mm-hmm.
or from one social event to another social event, or something that is really high stress for me, to something else that is also high
Right,
stress for
right,
me.
right.
So firstly, like this is something I really highly do not recommend. I know it can be hard, like, not to do that if you have a, if that is your nature of your work. If you also are a
Right.
parent, you need to attend like children's events and things like that. So it can be a bit hard and a bit tricky, and it might involve a lot of planning. It might also, I often also meet people who think that it's not possible, but when we talk through it, we find ways how it can be possible. So again, it's like we have all our own blind spots,
Mm-hmm.
and we need to work through that. That's why it's always helpful to have someone to to work
Guide you through
with,
it.
to guide you through it. So yes,
Yeah.
firstly, this is very much prepare yourself. Now, yeah, as well. Other thing is I teach is the getting to know your own needs and your own unique strengths, your own unique triggers, because one autistic person is not the same as another autistic person,
Right.
right? And the person with ADHD is not the same as another person with
Right.
ADHD, right?
Yeah.
So we all have our own different unique strengths and triggers, weaknesses, and what stresses us. So really getting to know that to a really detailed, to really small intricate details is very, very important for us, because those details play a big part, um, quite often for us. Like, it can be like really small things that make a big impact for us, so it's very important to understand your own triggers.
And
And
those are individual, those
yes,
specific
yes,
things. So
exactly.
is that like a ritual, or could it just be the placement of something, or like an example
So,
of
for example, for someone being in a concert might be a huge trigger, because there is a lot of people. It's
Mhm.
really noisy. There might be flashing lights. So for me, most of the time that would be a nightmare. But I know there are people for whom, like, if it is their favorite musician and whose music really inspires and uplifts
Right,
them.
and they really, really wanna go.
Yes, and
Yeah.
then if they are surrounded by their friends and family who they can feel at home with, whom they can feel authentic with, and they don't need to mask around the people who they live.
Okay.
So for them, it might be actually something quite uplifting and invigorating. Although I still have seen that for most neurodivergent people, that sort of environment is still, at the end of the day, is tiring. But for some
Mhm.
people it can be like invigorating and then tiring, but for others it could be like a complete sensory nightmare. So that is just like understanding that, what exactly is triggering you, and what exactly is your glimmer. So glimmer is the opposite of trigger, something that calms you, soothes you.
You said
It
like
can,
bringing friends and family, something that creates that security.
yeah, yeah. So
So if
glimmer,
something does happen, it does you don't worry yourself even in further spiral
yes.
out of it. Yeah.
And also like a glimmer is also like a sensory stimulus that helps you
Okay.
calm. So it can be a favorite song, it can be watching a sunset, it can be stroking a pet. It's some kind of small moment of calm that will bring you peace, that will bring you ease. So also knowing those, what are those for you,
Or
is also,
maybe even a candle or a
yeah, yeah,
scented
exactly.
candle.
Yeah, so it
Okay.
can be different for different people.
And I guess so you would have to get kind of really creative. Are there steps that you take to help them discover those situations? Because I know, just as as human beings, we have these moments where we may not realize this is why we're reacting to this situation this way,
Mhm.
and it has nothing to do with the situation, really. But
Mhm.
as for a neurodivergent, the situation does have everything to do with it. But how do you recognize, are there steps that you help them take to, like you said earlier, prepare for
Yes,
those
yes.
kind of situations?
Mhm. Yeah, so there are many steps actually, because it's all related. All the different parts of our wellness are related. So there is, of course, this knowing your sensory profile and understanding what are your triggers and glimmers. But also there are things, as you said, like you might not have awareness about certain things. You might have things like limiting beliefs. You might not be necessarily good at drawing boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that is actually quite common for neurodivergent people is not understanding the needs of your body very well. There is this term called interoception, which is basically meaning the feeling, the sensations of your own body, thirst, hunger, exhaustions, things like
Mm-hmm.
that. It's quite common for us to not recognize that in our body, and or to not pay attention, or it can be like we can sometimes be quite disconnected from our body. So when you're not feeling what is in your body, it can be hard to take care of it. Uh,
Right.
so it's something that I we don't really know why it is. Like it can be like a sensory thing that
Mm-hmm.
our brain just works differently, and we process sensory information differently. My idea as well that something else can also be at play here. So if you are late diagnosed, if your whole life you did not know that you're neurodivergent, and you are, for example, I don't know, sensitive to noise,
Right.
and things are like always too noisy for you, or certain noises annoy you, and this is something that is quite unusual. All your life you spend things you spend all your life you've been hearing things like, oh, this is not too loud, you're just too sensitive, just get over it. And you
Oh, okay.
learn to ignore the sensations that you have of your own body. So you have to unlearn that and learn again to reconnect with your own body. So a lot of people in wellness are saying, oh, you need to listen to your body, but you cannot
Mm-hmm.
listen to your body when you cannot hear it, you know? So you need to
Oh,
learn
yeah.
to hear your own body first. So in to improve interoception, it's what is recommended is all sorts of body work. Can be
Mm-hmm.
massages, can be weightlifting. Also, yoga nidra has been proven to help with interoception. So it's kind of yoga nidra is also called non-sleep deep rest. It's kind of a relaxation technique, a guided relaxation technique. You can find it on, I don't know, YouTube, Spotify, whatever.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Just type it in.
And,
Maybe even Netflix. Who knows?
and it takes you through this relaxation steps of relaxation, where you kind of relax your body, and you feel connected to it. And if you do it regularly, it helps you to connect with your own body. And I know for some people they don't really like it, doesn't work for them, but I know for a lot of people it works quite well.
But
So
that's
that is,
just it, though. You have to figure out what works for
yeah.
you, because I do some of the things that you're talking about as well. Um, with, again, back to my autoimmune disease and a few other events that happened when I was severely ill. I had the same, because when you are in survival mode for as long as I was, which was a couple of decades, with a severe disease where were hospitalized many times, you tend to ignore, because my doctors used to say, God, you're so stoic, because they knew from the tests and everything exactly how much pain I was in. But I was just like, how else am I supposed to be? And so for me, yeah, it's a physical thing. I couldn't really control any of that. Actually going through the feeling of the stress with that actually made it worse. So it was, no, I don't want to experience it. But I can see from a neurodivergent standpoint, especially if you've been living your entire life where somebody's literally telling you just to squash that, how it can become so hidden,
Yeah.
and having to just and you can literally sit there and why yourself to death, but you may never figure out the why. It's just, as long as you know, this is my response to that situation, here's how I regulate it.
Mhm. Yes.
So I really I feel like this conversation, even though it started out a little rocky, though, was very eye-opening, because you brought about something that perhaps somebody else didn't realize. And not only did you help us, you gave me information, gave my audience information about neurodivergence and burnout, but it also helps everyone, I think, overall, because I think it is very important to understand burnout. I've experienced burnout. It will put you in the hospital. It's not something to laugh at, and it does affect you mentally. So I think this is a very important topic, and I would love to have you on again if you would like to talk about something more specific after having this very general conversation. Her information is down in the show notes if you'd like to connect with her. And Paula, is there anything else you would like to add before we sign off today?
Yes. So you asked in the beginning, I think, what tools people can use if they're feeling
Yes.
stressed or going from one from one event to another, or for once, or if I think this is something that we all experience every day. We experience stress. We cannot always avoid it. It's part of our daily lives. So one tool I very recommend trying is practicing this very simple type of breath work. So whenever you feel you are getting stressed or you already are stressed, focus on the exhale and make sure that your exhale is longer than the inhale.
Okay. So is this like maybe you count to 4 and exhale for 8?
Something like that. Like if you can count, but I know for some people, like, counting even confuses
Yeah,
them
it
more.
does. Yeah, it
So
distracts me
yeah, just
from the method.
focus on the important thing to understand here why it works is we probably all have heard about our nervous system having two branches, sympathetic and parasympathetic,
Hmm.
otherwise known as stress response and rest and digest response. And we can't really control them.
Right.
We kind of control subconsciously, automatically, but breath is one thing that can help us balance it back. So
Okay.
inhale is associated with a stress response, and exhale is associated with a rest and digest
Right.
response. So focusing on the exhale and making the exhale longer than the inhale is going to help you uh, tip it back to balance and bring you back to that more into rest and digest state, and switch off the stress if you are feeling stressed, because we all have
Hmm.
that
Oh
stress
yeah.
sometimes we
Yeah.
cannot control. So this is one tip that I use all the time myself. I recommend everyone to use, and it's something you can. It's really simple. You can do it like if you are in a conference, if you are driving. You
Hmm.
don't have to, like,
Nobody will know.
exactly. So focus on the exhale. Make the exhale longer than the inhale, and if you remember to do that, take deeper breath into your stomach. Make it slower. Make it softer. It can be something like like blowing out candles, like blowing soap bubbles, soft, slow, long exhale.
Yeah, I've done that. Like when I've had calls with when I used to do calls with potential clients, I would get afterwards, I would get this a lot of energy, couldn't sit still, couldn't focus kind of thing just from the interaction. I'm an introvert, so that
Mhm.
kind of thing makes me go like actually when we get off here, I may go, let's go do a sit down and breathe now. I don't know what that is. I don't know why that is. I think it's just a piece of my personality that I get really excited. I used to work in radio, so that could be a part of it because you have to get real amped and excited when you do a radio events live with people. So it could just be part of that. But I stopped whying that a long time ago, and I do that breath work, and it's a great thing to do for, especially if you have maybe just 5 minutes in between situations, to kind of just sit down and do that real quick for 5 minutes before you walk in the room, before you get on that call, before you get in the car, before you do whatever. And all of a sudden, for me anyway, my brain goes, oh, that's what we're going to do now. It's like okay. I get it
Yes,
now. I know where I'm going.
yes. And as you said before, and you can do it after, and you can do it during. If you're in a
Hmm.
stressful situation, you can continue doing it. You might not be able to completely switch yourself off. You might
Right.
need to be activated in certain situations. It's only normal and healthy to be activated. It's
Mhm.
we do need both responses. We can't have never ever have stress, but sometimes in a certain situation you want to continue
Slow it down a
breathing.
little bit
Yes,
so you can think.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And
Yeah.
we I don't need to say how unhealthy it is to be in stress response for a long time.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
It's not good. It's not good. I know my autoimmune disease responds to it greatly. I know a lot. Their biggest intake of patients like me happen after the holiday season. More of us end up in the ER after the holiday season than any other time of the year. I'm like, oh, I just don't understand why. The stress can be good and bad. Stress can be from something good. I mean, it can be from a wedding. It's very stressful, although it's a joyous occasion.
Yes.
So thank you so much for your time. And remember, everyone, let's breathe in and breathe out.
And still be breathing out.
I keep doing it. Don't stop. Thank you, Paula. You have a wonderful day, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Be sure to join the Effortlessly Booked community on Facebook for more free resources and support. Simply check out the show notes. Please share this podcast with other online service providers in your circle. And by all means, leave a comment and let me know your biggest takeaway, along with other topics you would like me to cover, so you can continue to make business effortless.